Here, Vice Chair of the Pennsylvania Association for Rational Sexual Offense Laws. Thanks for checking out our video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. It helps build our audience and get our message out there even more. So we had a pretty important court decision in January 2023, just last month, and I wanted to give a brief explainer of what happened and where and why and how. And this challenge was to the new guidelines from the Attorney General of the United States and the Department of Justice. So up until January of 2022, so about a year ago, up until then, the onus or the responsibility, and this is kind of oversimplifying things, but this is the way I best understand it, the responsibility of people getting on the registry and maintaining the sex offense registry was given to the states and the territories. Those who have registries, according to the federal guidelines, remember, the feds have a law that they passed in 2006, the Sex Offense Registration and Notification Act, SORNA, and this law stated that all states and territories must have a registry, it must be publicly accessible, and it should have the following criteria, A, B, C, D, and E. And the onus was on the states and the territories to decide exactly how to do it and to implement it and enforce it. So it was up to Wyoming to enforce it in Wyoming. It was up to Pennsylvania to enforce it in Pennsylvania. It was up to the Lakota tribe to do their own registry. And so the Fed said you should do it this way, and if you do it our way, we will give you full funding. And if you don't do it our way, and if you want to, not put minors in your registry, or if you want to do it just for 10 years and not for 15 years, you're going to take a hit in justice funding, in criminal justice funding and police funding for your states. So a lot of states, wanted to comply. Anyway, up until last year, it was up to the states to either get with it and make their registries conform with the feds or face a monetary fine. Well, Mayor Garland, under this new administration, the Biden administration, in January 2022, accepted the motion or the idea of the Attorney General before him under Trump to put the onus and the responsibility away from the states and now onto the registrant themselves to comply with the federal SORNA. And this was a big change, right? Before, it was the states had to do it or else you face a monetary fine, and it changed it in January 2022 to the person forced to register themselves has to do it correctly or else you go to prison. You go to prison for a long time, and anyone who follows this movement knows that not complying with SORNA exactly correctly, can land you in prison for more than just a couple months. We're talking about years here. So in January 2022, again, the Fed said, hey, person on the registry, it's up to you to get on the list according to the way we say it at the Fed level. And we want you to report A, B, and C. And we want you to be on the list for 15 years or 25 years or a lifetime. Hey, I hear you, Pennsylvania might say they don't want you on the list after 10 years. You got to be on the list for 15 years. The feds, we created this rule, and our rule overrides the state rules. And so we need you to be on the list for 15 years for this set of crimes, or 25 years for this set of crimes. And hey, even though your state doesn't want you to give your screen names or your license plate number, we need you to give your license plate number and all your screen names. And so this caused a lot of confusion in January 2022 and up until, hell, still really. If my state doesn't want me to report my screen names, why would I report my screen names? If my state doesn't allow me to register after 10 years because I did my 10-year time, like we have in Pennsylvania for some people, but the feds say you want me to register for another 5 years, well, how do I do that? Are the state police even going to accept me? Are they going to let me register for another 5 years, even though I'm done and they told me I'm done and they took me off the list? How is this supposed to work, feds? And so our partners over at the Alliance for Constitutional Sexual Offense Laws over in California, they took it to court. And they had a couple of plaintiffs who did their time, a lot like the scenario I just outlined, who did their time. They got off the registry. And in one case, this guy got a pardon. And, for all intents and purposes, he has a clear criminal record. And, he now faces the real prospect that if he doesn't do what the feds want him to do, in his case, register for life, well, now he's in violation of a federal law and he's in jeopardy of going to prison. And so the case was brought to a federal court in California arguing these points. They argued that this is it's unconstitutional, it's unjust, and it's impossible. The feds want these people to register information A, B, and C, but our state doesn't want A, B, and C. Furthermore, they want us to register for a longer amount of time than our states want us to register. And up until the judge delivered this ruling just last year in January 2023, the line from the writings of the Department of Justice said that it's on the person who's got to register. You got to try your best, and if you can't get on the registry, if your state won't let you get on the registry or won't let you provide your screen names or your license plate number or your temporary address for 3 days, whatever that state doesn't want, and if you can't comply with the SORNA registry requirements, well, you might get arrested and you might wind up going on trial, but as long as you can prove that you tried to do it, you might have an affirmative defense and you might not wind up in prison. And so the judge took a look at this case. Again, it was a federal court, and what our partners at the ACSOL, the Alliance for Constitutional Sexual Offense Laws in California, what they wanted was a stay. They wanted an injunction on this law that the feds passed, saying that it's on you, PFR, person force register, to get all this done, and we don't care how you do it, just get it done. Well, the argument was this can't fly, right? We need more clarification if these people on the federal level are going to do this. How are they going to do it? How is it enforced? What is the plan here? It was, really thrown together according to the defendants in this case who brought the case up. And so the judge did grant a preliminary injunction, a temporary pause in the enforcement of this law. However, it was only for the state of California. The judge found that the feds can't impose this duty on people in the state of California until the feds have first checked with the state of California that the state wants people to register, number one, and number two, that there is the mechanism or the ability to give the information that the feds expect to be given. So again, the judge declared that in the state of California, for now, this cannot fly. You cannot be prosecuted under this federal law for failing to register if your state does not want you to register. And, the judge raised some serious concerns about overstepping boundaries and about due process and about the whole idea of innocent until proven guilty. Because, again, the onus was on the person forced to register. If you don't do it right, we'll still arrest you. And when we take you to trial, if you can prove to us that you tried, then you might get off. But that's not how it works, right? It's up to the government to prove their case and demonstrate that you've broken a law. It's not up to the accused to prove that they're innocent and that they haven't broken a law, right? It's flipped around like that. And so the judge who made this decision, again, only had authority to make this ruling for the state of California and raised all these points. And, in so many words, said that this is a poorly written law, it's hard to understand, and it's unjust. So what we're looking at now is further action. This was, again, a temporary stay, a preliminary hold. And what is next for the Department of Justice's new rule that was implemented in January 2022? How will this apply to Pennsylvania? How will it apply to other states and territories around the nation who are facing the exact same situation where the feds are saying one thing, but your states are saying another thing? But at the end of the day, it's not the feds or the state's problem. It's the person forced to register's problem. That's what we're waiting on. And so the case is not over yet. Again, this was a temporary decision made for the state of California. And let's all stay tuned for what's going to come out of the federal courts regarding this matter and what adjustments or concessions the Department of Justice is willing to make. So what does this mean for people in Pennsylvania? Well, not a lot, really, if you ask me. This has kind of been our stance ever since this happened in January 2022. The feds don't have marshals patrolling the streets, checking for registration compliance. You got state police doing it, but again, they would be checking for state compliance, not for the federal guideline compliance. And so really, if you're, a common person in Pennsylvania forced to register, you have a family member who's forced to register, this doesn't exactly apply to you. Could it? Perhaps. If you're traveling interstate, is the one concern. Now you've crossed state lines and you're engaging in interstate commerce. Now you're, subject to federal law. And, in theory, that you could get swooped up by a marshal or, an FBI agent at an airport or a bus station, or, when you cross a state line. To my knowledge, this has not happened yet. And this case that was ruled last month in California, gives me hope that logic and rationality will prevail. One concern that was brought up was for people who are on federal supervision. People who are on federal supervision are under a federal jurisdiction. And so what does that mean for people who are on federal probation in the state of Pennsylvania and compliance with the federal guidelines when you go to register with your state? How does that work exactly? This is another one of the many questions that is left unanswered by this vague and rather odd rule. What was the point of this change in January 2022? If you want more information on this, we will put a link in the description for our partners' court ruling and the great work that they did out of California. Again, shout outs to ACSOL for doing this hard work, and the Pacific Legal Foundation for taking a stand on this. Have any questions, of course, leave them in the comments. Let's start a dialogue about this. And, thanks again. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe right now and help us build our numbers and get the word out there more. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you again.